Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Excellency Esports Twitch channel, where we are continuing on our coverage of the Mid-League here in week number 7. Icarus, we have yet another matchup between two top teams. CB Rush still defending their throne on stream against yet another challenger currently sitting at second place in the standings. Game 1 draft has started up, and going up against Fever, CB Rush might have their hands full with this matchup.
This is probably going to be the most hype and most serious matchup, because if we're looking at both of these teams in terms of standings right now, CB Rush is sitting at 17-1. Fever is sitting at 12-3. With Ninetale Fox dropping out, it means that we can look at losses in order to determine which team really holds first place with all the bye weeks that go on. If there's ever going to be a time for Fever to snatch away that number 1 seed, it is going to be this week. If they get at least a 2-1, they can tie CB Rush, and they have the head-to-head matchup in order to go for that first seeded spot. So this is probably the most intense and most exciting series for us to be covering the entire tournament.
CB Rush starting off game number 1 draft, taking away, I guess, heeding the holy commandments of Icarus's game plan to go up against Fever. They take Tristana off of the board. They take Xayah off of the board as well. In Fever, they're taking a little play out of the Death Cards deck. They decide to ban away, as kind of expected at this point, going up against Acid and Frosty, taking the Talia and Kha'Zix off of the board. And then they decide to take Volibear off as well, usually one of Rutledge's big comfort picks. Then CB Rush decide to put Dabay on this Ezreal.
You know, I'm really surprised to see that Volibear is being taken away here by the side of Fever. It is something that both CB Rush and Fever do play a lot. We mentioned Zongi almost always picks up this Volibear pick as long as it's open and available, but it would have been going over to the hands of CB Rush into either that top lane Rutledge or into Acid's hand here, so you can't really give over that strong of a pick early on. I am surprised to see that Ezreal is going to be the first pick up here for CB Rush, though. When they can pick up the likes of, say, a Caitlyn that we've seen Dabay play all the season, I was mentioning that this Caitlyn pick works really, really well into the short-range AD carries that Fever does like to play for Evil Zara, and so it will be the Ezreal into Kai'Sa, and with Hecarim being picked up here, that's a very curious pick as well, because Hecarim isn't the strongest champion that we've seen in the jungle after those last few patches of nerfs.
Man, what were we saying literally just during the pre-show? Zongi, this man, if it's going in the jungle, he is seriously just Season 10 jungle personified. Like, I really just don't have any other understanding. The Xin Zhao was open, and now you're giving Acid one of his comfort picks for Season 11 here. Lilia's been nerfed. He's unable to keep on rolling with that champion just like last season, but he has been popping off on the Xin Zhao pick. Really strong in the meta and really strong in Acid's hands. Now we got Orianna going into the mid lane. Icarus, how do you feel about the first half of these drafts as we get into the second ban phase?
That Orianna does give me a lot of reason to worry, though, here. The Hecarim, sure, it's not the strongest solo champion, but when you pair it with the likes of this Kai'Sa and this Orianna, it is one of TL Providence's best champions that he can pull out here. And they're setting themselves up here on the side of Fever for a fantastic team fight composition so far. You have the Onslaught of Shadows to go into the back line, follow that up with an Orianna ball and Shockwave, and then Kai'Sa is able to use the Killer Instinct to jump onto whatever carry in the backside of the team fight that they want to pick out here. On the other hand, you do have a Lissandra to worry about, and that is something that has been picked up for the mid lane of CB Rush, which surprises me that Lux and Karma are being banned away here from Fever. It feels like they're kind of throwing bans towards the mid lane when we already know what is going to be being played by Frosty here. However, it does mean that they're taking away some of these long-range mages that are going to be able to support Xin Zhao, which is typically a very aggressive jungler, but needs support from an enchanter in order to stay alive throughout these fights. And the options are starting to wear a little bit thin here for CB Rush if they want to try and make a full team fight composition, or at least to support the Xin Zhao.
And we see the Braum pickup this time around for Rice every meal. Funny enough, this was a huge power pick just last week for Nelson. Icarus, if you remember last week's game, the Braum support through CB Rush was absolutely monumental. Nelson, I couldn't believe how he was able to pop off so hard on the pick, but especially with something aggressive like the Beastlands Callista that we saw, they really popped off. You're shocked, though, by this Yuumi pick coming in, and I think it was Cam talking a little earlier about how Nelson had been picking up the Yuumi gameplay.
Yeah, that's actually a pick we haven't seen in a hot minute. It's kind of the classic pairing of Ezreal Yuumi. We saw Yuumi get nerfed a bunch. We saw Ezreal get nerfed a bunch. And now that Ezreal's back in the meta with that Divine Sunderer build, it is going to mean that Yuumi has more options to be played in the bottom lane. We were talking you need some kind of enchantress support in order to help out Xin Zhao here. So you just slap a book hat on top of that jungler, and suddenly he's going to be so difficult to kill with a basically moving health pack that he has with Nelson. And on the top side of the map, the final pick being picked up for CB Rush here in this Cho'Gath, that's just going to provide the tankiest frontline options here for CB Rush, because they had, you know, a lot of damage, they had a lot of squishy members, but that Cho'Gath coming in is really rounding out the composition for CB Rush.
And Fever, in response, going for one of Stubby's comfort picks here on the Shen. Now, the split push items I saw a little bit on Twitter, I believe. The little cannon minion with the pirate hat, not going to be hitting the rift, I believe, just yet. But Stubby has been an absolute stud on the Shen pick, one of his huge comfort options. And going into Rutledge, I mean, comfort is pretty much everything, especially when trying to handle him in just a lane-to-lane matchup. Hopefully, for Stubby's sake, I think Fever is going to be wanting him to just kind of survive the early game, and then maybe they can make something happen elsewhere on the map.
You know, during the pre-show, I was standing CB Rush pretty hard here, but looking at these compositions, one thing I do want to point out is just ease of execution when it comes to the style of champions that each team is playing here. Ezreal, Yuumi, Xin Zhao, they all require, or not so much Yuumi, but the Lissandra in particular does kind of fit into this. They require a certain style of play. Xin Zhao, you have to get rolling ahead early. You have to be aggressive. Ezreal is a very unique AD carry, and Lissandra, the same thing as a very unique style of mid lane mage here coming in for CB Rush. They have to play to a very certain win condition for each of these champions to be at their strongest. Meanwhile, on the side of Fever, they just want to fight. That's all that they're worried about. You have Hecarim, Orianna, Kai'Sa, Braum, and Shen. Like, they're all just team fighting champions. Their game plan is super easy. You group up as 4, you wait for Hecarim to engage with the Onslaught of Shadows, and then you slap Kai'Sa in there, you slap the Shockwave on top of it, and you have the Stand United in order to make sure that Zhongyi doesn't go down, and suddenly Fever just wipes your entire team around any kind of objective.
Exactly. And funny enough, I feel like we saw a little bit of the old Meme City habits pop up for CB Rush last week against Death Cards Academy, because last season I feel like we thought of Meme City as this incredible team, a lot of all-pro selections for their players, super solid regular season, not discrediting that at all, but they did not dominate the game the way we saw Glaive Esports did. You know, the games were just closer, and Meme City just didn't win by absolutely smashing the other top teams. There were some close matches, but when it came down to it, Meme City just always won those games because they had the team fight communication, the team fight prowess to really pop off. So I'm wondering, Icarus, we have these two compositions very likely going into the late game. Who are you favoring in that scenario?
A lot of it comes down to which one of these teams is going to be able to get the setup, and a lot of it, for me personally, is going to come down to whether or not CB Rush can find themselves some early leads. I do think that they're going to have a fairly easy time looking for invades around the jungle. The Xin Zhao should be punishing this Hecarim in the early game. If you have Acid constantly looking for invades, trying to shut down Zhongyi and not letting this Hecarim hit level 6 absolutely for free and getting towards that Divine Sunderer, then it's going to mean that Zhongyi, once the game starts going into the mid and to late game team fights, is going to be so far behind that he might not have the impact that you need, because the new Hecarim build is that Divine Thunder Sterax Gauge kind of more bruiser style. So If it's CB Rush, you need to be finding an early game advantage for yourself, because if you get into those mid-game team fights, if you get into that late game stage where you have Fever grouped up and they're not far enough behind, I do think that their ease of execution when it comes to full-on team fights, as long as they find the trigger to pull there, which is pretty easy for them, is going to be much more helpful for them, what CB Rush has drafted for themselves.
Right, I completely agree, Icarus. I want to kind of go back once again to the CB Rush Death Cards game last week that we saw, because I was honestly surprised over just the 3-0 that happened. But I think we saw some moments when it went into the late game, when it went into CB Rush's comfort zone of finding picks where teams really would be kind of, I think, afraid to pull the trigger. And you saw even just their in-gauge disruption, their ability to play fights really well and just pick their opponents apart. When you got Zongi on a Hecarim pick like this, I feel like this is exactly the kind of champion he wants to be on. Providence needs to have a really big game on this Orianna, could maybe make some magic happen, start some fights on the CB Rush that, hey, maybe they aren't really expecting. I'm also kind of thinking, Icarus, I'm kind of wondering what you think, but Xin Zhao, maybe not the best champ into this composition, because I feel like everyone's going to be able to get on acid. Everyone's gonna be on acid.
Yeah, that's really where I said it starts to get scary for CB Rush if acid isn't able to get ahead early, because it is a Xin Zhao, and how is he supposed to jump on top of Braum, Shen, and Orianna without getting absolutely deleted by that concussive blows that's going to be coming in from the Braum, by the isolated damage that Kai'Sa will be able to get? I mean, I do want to see, but because Yuumi isn't going to be able to absorbing any of that damage. And when I say isolated, I mean from the Cathian Rain. It's going to be difficult for CB Rush to set themselves up for team fights if they don't have the lead and they aren't just slapping Fever around with their wallets, or they're not able to get the proper setup where Ezreal can be throwing out Mystic shots. Again, ease of execution is the name of the game here for Fever when it comes to these mid-game team fights around objectives, and that's always the most important determining factor in these kind of, plat diamond leagues, is which team is going to be able to be at the objective, find themselves the team-wide leads, and take the team fights the best. And when you have the very obvious AoE composition that Fever has drafted for themselves, you have to respect that no matter what's going on during the laning phase, once they're all level 6, once they're grouped up, they just have the AoE advantage.
Yeah, this kind of flew under the radar. Also, Rutledge getting here late tonight. Kaz is subbed in right now for the CB Rush lineup. He's going to be in the top lane, going up against a bully in Stubby on this Shen pick. All the lanes should be really exciting for this fight for bragging rights. Don't click out of that browser. The #1 seed, CB Rush, once again on stream, once again taking on more top 5 teams. Are they going to be able to keep the win streak going? Well, let's see if Fever is going to be able to pull one out maybe when Rutledge is out. Don't click out of that browser. Gunjin and Cam are waiting on the Rift. They're ready to go. We'll see you in a bit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Excellency Mid-League. Tonight, we have a very special matchup for you. Tonight, we have CB Rush versus Fever. CB Rush currently sitting 17-1, first place at this point, as well as Fever 12-3, currently sitting at second. If Fever are able to take the 3-0 tonight, they will be taking that first seed away from CB Rush for the first time in this entire season.
And I'm super hyped up for this matchup, Cam, because again, we have this battle for first, and not only that, this could be kind of a preview of what could be Excellency Summer Mid-League Finals. So I'm going to be super excited to see how these teams shake out. Again, both of them are kind of fanning out, looking to see if Acid wanted to do the invade. Things I want to mention early on, as we kind of have this just a regular start from both of these teams, is going to be kind of the scaling matchup that's happening in this bot lane. Obviously, you have Dabay and Nelson on the Ezreal and the Yuumi pick. It does absolutely nothing in lane, Cam. It will just sit there and hopefully it will CS. And again, Dabay is ready for that because he has the cleanse, he has the Tear of the Goddess start. So for the side of Fever, they need to be able to punish that because again, as the game goes on and progress, this Yuumi Cho'Gath, the Ezreal with the new Divine Sunder build will become so annoying and so hard to deal with all these short range champions and all these divers. So I'm excited to see what Fever do to punish the bot lane. Big thing I want to talk about, and I think you can mention, is Providence didn't take cleanse in the mid lane. So Lissandra can punish that, especially with Acid on the Xin Zhao pick.
Absolutely. Like you're saying, the scaling on the side of CB Rush is just so strong in this game. If they are able to get past that 20 or even that 30-minute mark without being significantly far behind, which is something that we've seen them do very consistently throughout this entire season so far, then they're just going to be able to hard stomp this game, especially with just this incredible scaling from the Cho'Gath, from the Lissandra, and then, like you said, the bot lane as well. And yes, Providence opted to not take cleanse this game, opting instead for that teleport in the mid lane, which is not something that we were hoping for early on, as there is a little bit of a 1v1 happening in the top lane there, but no sums were burned and nobody died.
Yeah, Stubby was able to get the level 2 first and just punish Kaz. And again, Kaz is a substitute. We aren't going to be able to see Rutledge in game number 1. He will be coming back for game number 2, hopefully. But again, having that substitute, kind of getting used to Excellency mid-league play and kind of the speed of it, gets punished in the early game, but not too much going to be lost. And big thing, you mentioned it. Providence didn't take cleanse. Obviously, you can say forehead, Lissandra ulti can't be cleansed. But in that early game, when you have the Xin Zhao and Lissandra who can just punish, as we have Zongi looking for this bot lane play.
There's going to be a gank here in the bot lane. Ghost already burned from Zongi. Dabay, nice flash very early just to make sure he gets out of that one.
Yeah, you can see Zongi kind of cheesing a little bit. He clears his top side out and immediately runs down for the bot lane play, forcing Sums out. Dabay did end up having to flash and cleanse, so it's going to be big that cooldown is down, especially when the Kai'Sa and Braum can hit that level 6 and try to force something onto the Ezreal Yuumi.
Absolutely. Getting both of those sums out from the Ezreal, from Dabay so early on is going to be very big for Zongi in the bot lane there, as if he is able to re-gank them, and that's going to be pretty huge. And especially since Dabay just shoved that wave right there, it looks like he's potentially going to be trying to go for an invade here onto Zongi. Actually, they know that he 3-camped into bot lane, and that was just a smite from Zongi. Nothing else happened there, as he did realize there might just be 4 people collapsing on him right now.
Yeah, nothing much ends up happening, but it is going to make sure that Zongi doesn't end up picking up either the bot side scuttle, and if Acid just runs over the top side, he should be able to pretty much double scuttle Zongi. So that's going to be the price that he's going to pay for that early level 3 gank. But again, it's kind of the price you have to pay in the meta, because again, Zongi is playing Hecarim. It's something that we've seen a lot in Season 11, but it's something that we haven't seen recently due to the nerfs, due to the clearing speed nerfs. Acid is kind of playing that new age jungler. He's playing what Hecarim used to be, what this beautiful horse is transformed into, is Xin Zhao, where he clears fast, he ganks early, and when he snowballs, he takes over because he has such build flexibility, so much damage in his kit, and obviously that ultimate making him immune makes so that anybody that's trying to hit him, he's kind of a bane for ranged champions. So as a AD carry main, I hate Xin Zhao, but I'm excited to see Acid pilot it.
Absolutely. I mean, Xin Zhao is kind of like almost that old version of Gwen, and obviously Gwen is probably one of the strongest top laners, if not the strongest top laner at this point. So you're just basically playing Gwen 1.0 in the jungle now, as that is what Xin Zhao is essentially. And then you're playing into the old school Hecarim, where he was good. He was good a few months ago, though. So it's not there anymore, and Acid, he actually is going to find a gank up onto Stubby. Stubby does have that flash available. Zongi coming back in for the counter gank, but that's already already first blood going down to Acid. TP coming in from Frosty as well, just to make sure no one's going to die, as they're going to continue this gank onto Zongi, trying to find that second kill. And that is a very nice early double kill for Acid.
They get the double kill, and great play by Acid. Again, they wanted to set it up. Stubby was looking like he was just baiting it, goes back in, but again, Zongi is not the same horse. That is not Pride Stallion that's coming in and gonna double kill you and take the double buffs and carry the game. Hecarim is a lot weaker, especially with that devastating charge. He tries to go and gets punished for it, and you can see the coordination of CB Rush. They have that built-in synergy from last split, and they're bringing it over as Frosty immediately teleports. They pick up the 2 kills onto Acid. I'm sad that he's going to be going the tankier Zinzao build. I would have loved to see the Eclipse, maybe even the Gale Force Zinzao, but we are going to see a tankier Zinzao that's going to be kind of snowballing because he picked up double scuttle and a double kill. In the early
Absolutely. Game. I mean, he did pick up double scuttle, but he is still down a few CS here from Zongi, which is very surprising, as Hecarim does still have that pretty fast clear speed. It's just not going to be as fast and not going to be as powerful as Acid, especially in those early ganks pre-6 here, as, I mean, we did see Zongi have a very nice early gank. I mean, he did get both summoners from Dabay, but that was not a kill, and both of those summoners are almost back up now, so there is not a lot of punish from that early gank.
Yeah, not that much punish, and now that Ezreal and Nelson have been able to get to the point where they do have the Sheen picked up, they have the Bandle Glass Mirror, they're just going to be able to kind of scale it up. Thankfully for the side of Fever, it is going to be an Infernal Dragon as the first dragon, so if they can pick that up, they can add some extra power to that early game bot lane focus style. But looking at the state of the map, it feels like this is exactly what CB Rush wanted. They wanted more in action in the early game, and if they had action, it wanted to be CB Rush favorite. So again, advantage of the side of CB Rush, because for the scaling advantage, unless there's a big wombo combo, unless things just happen perfectly, it is favored for the side of CB Rush.
And Zongi is going to try and escape from Acid there, but Acid with that nice dash onto the blast cone is just going to make sure there is no escaping from him, but there is no fight coming out from that, unfortunately.
And you can see the control that Fever have with the double pink wards, just controlling the river. But again, Acid is so much stronger than Zongi at the moment, sitting on that Bambi as well. Zongi's just sitting on boots, so he's just going to be able to get control back and probably just rush down that Infernal Drake. It's, again, advantage for the side of CB Rush, and it feels like they're not, again, being able to make much happen, and the scaling is just happening for the side of CB Rush.
Absolutely. This scaling is exactly what CB Rush needs, for they're basically entirely scaling comp everyone other than their Zinzao. Zinzao especially shines in this early game, and then if he is able to find these leads like he is doing now, is going to shine in the mid game as well. But late game, that is where we get to see Dabay, that's where we get to see Frosty, and especially Kaz on that Cho'Gath, where late game, Cho'Gath with the Yuumi on him is really just never going to die.
Yeah, he's not going to die, and again, there's going to be a mini Cho'Gath in this game with Acid on this expedited tank Zinzao build, where he's super tanky, because again, with Zinzao, you have that 5 seconds of ranged invulnerability, but you also have now a Yuumi just pumping you up with that healing. So there's a lot of tanks and a lot of frontline for the side of CB Rush. So again, ease of execution, I would say, goes to the side of Fever, because you can just kind of hit your R and just try to all jump in and wombo them down. But in terms of just front to back overall team fighting, I give it to the side of CB Rush, because again, their champions are kind of fit to the meta a lot better. I'm excited to see what Dabay does with this Ezreal, but again, it's been popping off a lot more. And if you want to talk about kind of the switch over to the Divine Thunder and seeing how Ezreal's kind of risen back up in the meta.
Yeah, absolutely. Ezreal is certainly going to be rising up very strong with that new Divine Sunderer build. And then on the last patch, we did get to see a lot of the other Divine Sunderer champions being nerfed, Ezreal not being one of them. So with those Divine Sunderer buffs, he's just going to be even stronger than he was before. And right now, he is just probably the strongest ADC in the meta at this point. And being a super safe B1 pick as well, as you can pivot him into so many different comps. He's not just a pick champion. He's not just an objective taken champion. He can do a whole lot of things, which makes him very safe in draft, as well as just being such good in the game as well.
And you know, Cam, I'm an AD carry main, but I'm an AD carry main that likes to attack fast. And so anytime Ezreal's meta, I just cringe a little bit. I'm like, oh no, I gotta hit skill shots. I can't just right click it. It makes me a little bit sad on the inside. As an AD carry main, I'm not used to landing skill shots. We just kind of click into the middle of the team fight and hope it all goes well. But again, as we head back into the state of the game, there was a big CS lead for the side of Stubby that he'd kind of been holding a bit of a freeze in the top lane. But again, Kaz has been able to fight back, picking up the 2 assists, and he's just kind of been able to neutralize that lane. And now as we see the supports kind of roaming out, Rice is going to make that roam up from the top side and maybe get some vision around this Rift Herald fight that should be happening soon.
Absolutely. We could be seeing a very early Rift Herald fight, as you do want to take that Rift Herald preferably before that 14-minute mark so that you are able to take the plates and potentially have that second Rift Herald available. And it does look like Fever so far has that top lane river control that they need, but Acid could be looking for a steal here. He does have his support and mid laner roaming up, as well as Kaz roaming down from the top lane. I mean, Rift Herald's still at 3,000 HP here, and Acid is already in on his own. He's trying to find his kill. He finds the kill onto Songi in the backline. Kaz is taking damage on his own. Nelson off of everybody though, now finds himself onto Frosty. Rift Herald has reset, so we are just fighting each other now. Rice trying to protect Providence, not going to be enough there. Kaz picking up that kill now, 4-0 in the favor of CB Rush.
And what a great fight for the side of CB Rush, but they're going to try to respond on the side of Fever.
Not quite over. Evil Zara going to be flashing onto Dabay with that Stand United coming down from Stubby here, using that heal just for a little bit of movement speed. Stubby flashing onto Dabay. He already used all of his summons, and that's just going to be a kill going over to Stubby.
And if you're at the side of CB Rush, you just type in all chat worth right there. You say, hey man, we got the Ezreal kill, right guys? We might have lost Rift Herald, we might have lost 2 kills, but at least we got the Ezreal bot lane. Again, great fight for the side of CB Rush. You can see Acid jumps in, was almost 10% health, but he's so tanky with that Xin Zhao ultimate, able to knock everyone back. Nelson comes in, flies in, and does a lot of AoE damage on the side of CB Rush. With that Yuumi ulti, with Frosty's death passive, plus the Lissandra ulti, he's able to kind of just zone out the rest of the members. Everyone kind of split apart, and in these singular fights, Acid was just able to heal up, engage, CC, and advantage for the side of CB Rush as they pick up the Rift Herald. They do end up losing a kill in the bot lane, but again, a 1k gold lead for the side of CB Rush. They have the first dragon, they have the first Rift Herald, and everything's going CB.
Absolutely. This is definitely what we have been seeing in basically every single game so far this season from CB Rush, is this such strong consistency to not only find these early game leads, but then to very easily be able to close out with them despite having such a late game scaling comp in this game especially. Is just, this is not what we were expecting originally from CB Rush when they locked in 4 hyper scaling champions into a comp that's supposed to dominate the early game.
Yeah, definitely a comp that's supposed to dominate the early game. We are going to see a little bit of an invade, trying to get something done.
They're trying to find this kill onto Frosty here, and with that shockwave, they are going to finally pick up that kill. Actually, no, he somehow managed to live. I didn't even see him with that E. He did actually manage to live that one, surprisingly. So that was quite a lot burned for a kill that they weren't even able to take, but it does look like they will be able to see their first dragon for the side of Fever.
Yeah, they're going to be able to call everyone down, call down the Shen ult TP as well. And so they're going to be able to force the Cloud Dragon. Again, an advantage for the side of Fever, but they don't end up picking up the kills, but they're just going to look for more fighting. They're trying to find this kill back here onto Providence, though, in the backline. He does not have that shockwave available, but Acid taking so much damage, but he does survive for so long because, like you're saying, he is this tank Xin Zhao, and this is just so many kills over one dragon, but so far they have only found that one, and they are not going to find another one. Yeah, and Acid. He's just involved in every single play that's happening around the map. He's just so tanky right now that no member on the side of Fever can really cut through him, especially with the Yuumi sitting right on top of him. Nelson's just kind of chaining through shields, heals, making these fights work. And again, advantage for the side of CB Rush. They do end up losing the Cloud Dragon, but with this Mountain Soul map, this is advantage because again, if you can get some Mountain Soul stacked up onto the Xin Zhao, onto this Cho'Gath, they're going to start getting more and more unkillable. And there's not a big enough lead for the side of Fever that you would say that there's anything going to be done on their end. And again, CB Rush is kind of taking away in this early game, but it looks like Fever is fighting back.
Absolutely. So far, most of this gold lead is sitting on that Xin Zhao, though. About a 1,500 lead, specifically on the Xin Zhao, out of the total 2,000 lead for CB Rush. So if they aren't fighting with Acid, then they are fighting basically only 500 gold up, which is not a whole lot to be shared across an entire team. So they do really need to be fighting around Acid, and specifically Acid does need to start transferring his lead onto his other more scaling members of his team.
Yeah, he definitely needs to transfer the lead over, but you can see that the members like Dabay and Nelson are just kind of free scaling. There's not been too much threat being put on to either the Ezreal or the Yuumi, so they're just kind of farming up. There's the Divine Sunder being picked up by the Ezreal. He's very close to stacking up fully up that tier, so the Muramana will get instantly transformed once he gets that 2,000 gold. And again, they're just slowly scaling up, but they're going to try to make a play down bot lane, but Acid is here.
They're trying to make a play bot lane, but like you're saying, Acid is here to try and make this stop. Bryce has already gone golden here as Zongi going into the back line, but all on his own underneath the tower as well. That's just going to be a kill going down to Frosty as well as Rice falling to Dabay. Evil Zara is now going to be caught out here. He is going to use that killer instinct to just try and get away for a little bit longer, but CBR Acid so strong here on the Xin Zhao. Meanwhile, we're going to have a fight in the top lane here as well between these two tanks, as Kaz was able to stop that Stand United being teleported down, and now he could be a little bit in trouble there, but he is a Cho'Gath, and it is just so hard to kill a Cho'Gath.
And a united front from the side of CB Rush. They're making plays around the map, and they're making it happen. Kaz being able to stop that Shen ulti was huge because Zongi flew in expecting maybe Kaz to kind of jump in and help him out, but there just was too much threat from the Cho'Gath. And again, advantage for the side of CB Rush. I feel like a broken record that just keep repeating the same exact things, but they're just making these fights work time after time after time, and it feels like Zongi's just being a little bit too over aggressive. He's trying to make these plays happen. He's trying to make plays happen with the Orianna ball, trying to get these big wombo combos, but there's just not items on the side of Fever. It's one of those situations where you make that meme. They're just too tanky on the side of Fever, and they're trying to—
Oh my gosh, Stubby! He's going to take that flash shot from Kaz, but the last tower shot is going to kill Kaz, finally, for the first solo kill of top lane.
First solo kill, and it looks like my League of Legends has broken for a little bit, so no. I'll be transitioning it over to you, Cam. 1 second. Ooh.
All right, so that was going to be our first solo kill. It did look like Kaz was going to find it, as his ultimate did come up just at that second to make that flash ult play happen, but Stubby just on a tank on that Shen there is very hard to try and one-shot with a specific ultimate that is meant to execute someone. So once he does get out of that range of that execute, then he's going to survive it. And that very last tower shot killing Kaz is just really a series of unfortunate events happening there in the top lane. It does appear that Gunjan has still lost his internet, so it is just going to be me here for a second, as we are going to probably have a Mountain Dragon fight happening here in around 30 seconds. Currently, CB Rush has full bot lane River Prio, as there's really no one sitting bot lane at this point, as TL Providence kind of circling around in that bot lane jungle and just trying to maybe not die, maybe get some vision for himself so that he knows that he's not going to be caught out. But Zongi sitting topside is not going to be in any position to even look for a steal on this dragon, as Fever knows they're just too far behind at this point. Only 3k it seems on the leaderboard, but they don't know that it's only 3k. For them, it feels much stronger, so it does look like CB Rush is going to be able to take this very nice and free second dragon for themselves, as Zongi is looking to trade that for that second Rift Herald, and I'm not sure how Gunjan is doing. It does look like his internet might be coming back here, as we did see CB Rush take that second dragon of the game. Never mind, Gunjan is still MIA, as I think we're going to actually have Icarus jumping in here to join me, as we're going to have a fight here underneath this mid lane tower. They did finally get that last auto in. His Acid is a little bit caught out here, but he is so hard to catch out on this Xin Zhao. He does almost want to go back in here, as Frosty does land that nice fruit onto Rice Meal every day, and that is going to be 2 kills going over to Acid once again in this fight, finding such a strong lead on the Xin Zhao.
I'm going to be stepping in for Gungeon while he gets his internet put back together here. And we could just see kind of what we were talking about before. Once CBR is able to find themselves a lead, they're just popping off. And they have found themselves such a strong early game with those 2 dragons, 10 kills at this stage, and a fantastic 4,000, almost 5,000 gold lead. And it means that they could just take team fights like this, where you have Acid and you have Kaz that can sit in the front line, play tank, and meanwhile Dabay and Frosty are just constantly throwing skill shot after skill shot out at their opponents, looking for picks and finding the squishy members of Fever who aren't prepared to fight, who haven't hit their itemization points yet, and they're just taking them down before they're able to get to a stage in the game where they're strong enough to be taking these aggressive team fights.
Yeah, absolutely. CB Rush just really showing up with that consistency that we were really expecting from them, as especially me and Icarus here, hoping for them in the pre-show, and now they're really showing up here. Currently 10-2. I believe that's a 5k gold lead now, as it just keeps getting bigger and bigger after every single team fight. Yes, Kaz did give a solo kill over to Stubby, but that was just more of a fun top lane thing, as really nothing else has come out of this top lane matchup so far. But both of them being tanks, we are definitely going to be expecting a lot more from this top lane island so far in the late game.
Oh, his mic's not back in.
Gungeon, I'm sorry, you're not an OBS. I think we're going to have another top lane fight here, as like I've been saying, this has just been a top lane island so far. Nothing has really been happened so far, as we are actually going to have a TP coming in from Frosty, as both Evil Zara and Zongi have arrived, but they know that it is just so hard to fight, especially without knowing where Acid is specifically. And now it almost looks like CB Rush could be looking to take this first Baron of the game at only 21 minutes into this game so far, still so soon, and Acid looks like he could very easily be catching out Zong here. Zongi all on his own in this mid lane, not going to be fast enough on that Hecarim to get away from Acid if they were able to continue chase. Again, just so much top lane control for the side of CB Rush right now. It's just so hard for anything, for Fever. They can't even walk in their own jungle anymore. Welcome back.
Technical difficulties, but it happens. It looks like CB Rush is going to try and make the Baron call here, and there's not much vision for the side of a Fever. They're trying to get something done, but they should know that something's happening. Every member is off the map, but they're just going to end up losing the Baron here. They're going to try to contest, but it's a little too late. And again, 22 minutes in, CB Rush pick up the Baron. There's going to be a Rift Herald drop mid, but again, just a little bit of tower damage. But again, advantage for the side of CB Rush, and with the poke, I'm not going to call it a poke cam. It's kind of like a poke situation. There's some poke. Dabay does have the Manamune finish. He does have the Divine Sunder finish, so he does have a lot of damage. So once they start sieging up with this Baron buff, it's going to be hard because, again, you want to try and engage, but you're engaging into Lysandre, you're engaging into Acid with this full tank comp, and it's just hard.
Absolutely. Once Kaz is scaling up on this Cho'Gath, you are not going to be able to kill him. And then Nelson sitting on top of him as well is just, there's really not a whole lot you can do to break that front line, as you don't have that tank shredding that you need. Something like a Tristana, something like even a Vayne would have been so strong into this Cho'Gath pick here. But without those tank shredders, it's just not going to be very much happening in team fights specifically if we are playing them front to back. So if we are trying to play team fights in this game, especially for Fever, they're going to need to try and pick out these squishy members, both Frosty and Bay, without having to try and break through that Cho'Gath.
And this is one of those situations where I do want to call out Evil Zar's build. He did go for the Serrated Dirk to get that Q evolve onto the Kai'Sa, but especially with the double tanks on the side of CB Rush, you kind of wanted to opt to see a LDR, at least second or third item. So with this Serrated Dirk picked up, it's kind of just slowing down his build even more and more, and he's not going to be able to deal damage. Again, he wants that Q spike, but after you can't get much done in the early game, it's not worth it when you have the scaling pick. But
Providence forced to flash to Stand United already coming out, but he is just absolutely one-shot. And once again, Stand United was canceled, so even if he wasn't one-shot, Shen would have not been joining him to try and save him there.
I don't even know if it was canceled, Cam, or if it just got instantly deleted because all the damage hit, every single point of damage hit right there. There's not much they can do on the side of Fever. They're trying to make something happen. They're going to have to make an Alamo play at this Mountain Dragon soul point, but you just try to lose as little as possible. You can't even go into these side lanes because, again, I love Frosty's play. He plays these mid laners, he plays strong mid laners, but a lot of what he does is that roaming threat. He always knows when to make the play. He knows when to make those TP plays. So, he's looking for these roams. He's looking to break open these towers, but at least Zoggy picked up the red buff, guys, so we got something going on here. I believe Tyler One has said this, comebackable is the term that I like to use.
Yes.
Because not everything is winnable, but some things are comebackable. So we'll see if Fever can try to will that Tyler One mentality into them, but it is going to be hard because they are down 7k, and with that Mountain Soul kind of at gunpoint in 3 minutes, it's going to be hard.
You could almost argue that this was just a big brain play from CB Rush all along. They lost that second dragon just so that they could have those 3 mountain dragons for the Mountain Soul, just so that no one is literally ever going to die from CB Rush.
Yeah, it could be the biggest brain play. Acid has been known to giga brain every single enemy jungler out there. I do think they would want to make sure that the game just kind of ends a little bit quicker. But again, you have these hyper skills, you have this beefy front line, so you can take it late. It is going to be hard to try and get anything done. If Fever does want to get something done, I want them to try and attack one of the side lanes. Obviously, it feels like CB Rush is just playing the 1-3-1 out, pushing out the lanes with the Ezreals and swapping around where Frosty and the Ezreal end up going. But you can try and attack at least one of the lanes. When you're this far behind, you can't get even trades. You're not going to be able to get a trade where you're like trading 1-for-1 in kills or trading a tower for tower. So you need to try to get some sort of gold infusion, and once the member is off the map, then you need to try to force the play and make something happen. But it looks like Providence is going to get picked out again. It was close, but
it was very close.
It was incredibly close, but we're just kind of in that state where CB Rush is just now waiting and waiting, because again, this is something that Mac mentioned about them in splits past. They're not a team that just runs it down and forces every objective. It takes every single fight around every single Wraith camp. They played the strong and kind of scaling comp, and they'll just beat you in the late game with just better macro decisions and better playmaking.
Absolutely, but it does require Fever to even be able to get there, as currently sitting at around a 9k gold deficit for themselves right now. It's really looking like they need to make, like you were saying earlier, those comebackable plays, whether it's just a red buff smite or even something more, as currently it does look like they are not able to straight 5v5 CB Rush head on. But if they are able to find those picks that you were mentioning for themselves, finding that 500 gold shutdown from Acid, or even that 150 from just Dabay, would be so big in trying to close this gold lead, especially if they are able to find it on one of those champions that they pick to do damage, such as Evil Zara for Kai'Sa, or even Providence on Orianna's not yet past his scaling point.
Yeah, and you can see that they are hitting some of their item spikes. You can see that the Orianna has now picked up the Void Staff. You can see that Kai'Sa has picked up the PD to get her E evolve. So there is a chance they do have the damage, but it's going to take so much time to burst through Acid and Kaz that this Ezreal is just going to be raining down Mystic shots left, right, and center, and it's going to be hard to really make any single play happen. So it's going to be really on the kind of backs of Zongi, Stubby, and Providence to make sure that some sort of wombo hits onto the backline, and that they can just get one of these fights to happen really quickly and really decisively. Because if that doesn't happen, then the scaling and this long form kind of anaconda like grip of a team fight that the Xin Zhao, Cho'Gath, and Yuumi present, it's going to be hard to get anything done. But 12 seconds left on this Mountain Dragon timer, and it looks like Fever's not really stepping up to play. It might be just a concession of Mountain Soul. Oh, Frosty!
They already found that flash from Providence just from the mere presence of Frosty. Yes, Frosty did use his flash, but he didn't even need to. He use the zone flash after Providence used his own. And that's just going to be that Mountain Soul going down for CB Rush, completely uncontested from Fever, as they do know if they do lose this team fight at this point in the game, there is no coming back. They will take that inhibitor, and they will probably take one, if not both of those Nexus towers as well. It is just so hard to fight this, because you know that if you lose, you're losing the game off of that fight.
And the thought process from Fever could be that they don't think they can take the fight around Mountain Dragon at all, and they just want to try and coin flip a Baron steal. And that's what it looks like they're kind of setting up for. They just think that if they can get the Baron, that there's not enough damage.
Zongi is already caught out here. He's already forced to use his ultimate to try and get out, but he is CC'd yet again. Frosty able to pick up that kill onto him, and now they can just freely chase down the rest of the members of Fever, or even look to turn around and try and take that Baron for themselves, as Zongi being caught out like that in his own jungle with no vision for himself, knowing where CB Rush members are. It's just going to be a pretty free Baron for CB Rush.
Yeah, and you can say he's caught out, but it's kind of the play you have to make when you're this far behind. You have to hope that you can kind of just sit in one of these vision pockets and hope that you can get one of these Baron steals. He wasn't able to get it, and Zongi does get punished, and now this is just going to be Baron for the side of CB Rush. They have the Mountain Soul, they have the Baron. They're just going to be able to try and 1-3-1, and they really need to make sure that they at least break open 2 inhibs on this next push. But again, I don't want to call it out. This is not a caster curse moment. I don't want to say this. I don't like putting this into the air, Cam. But an Elder Dragon situation could happen. We have seen teams in these Elder Dragon situations with the power of that Elder buff, and with kind of, again, when you give an Orianna time to scale and an Elder buff, there is a chance that something happens. So if CB Rush can't break open at least 2 inhibitors and kind of put that death blow into the side of Fever, there is a chance that Fever can try to come back, but it's so limited because, again, people like to say that Infernal Dragon is the strongest soul. I personally think it's Mountain, just because you can run into a team fight, literally take 400 health of damage, walk away, and then just keep doing that because it's a regenerating shield, and it's so incredibly strong.
Yeah, it is such a strong soul that they have taken, especially for these tanky champions, as maybe, once again, Acid, just too big brain for all of us, started building tank knowing it was going to be that Mountain Soul. So maybe he is just on another dimension from the rest of us that we haven't even realized. But it is interesting to note that CB Rush, knowing that they are at such a massive gold lead right now, currently at 8K, have been taking this game pretty slowly. Yes, they have taken 2 Barons, but they haven't taken a whole lot of towers or even a lot more kills since those Barons have been taken themselves. As I say that, of course, they are now sieging this mid inhibitor, but other than this, it has been quite a slow game from CB Rush.
And that's the playstyle they like. They play this Anaconda grip where they just kind of just choke you out in objectives. They don't make the biggest, flashiest plays, but they are smart. They know what to do, especially in the late game. Like, their late game decision making is always really sound and true, and so they can just make these plays where, again, they're not going to force down a tower. They're just going to slowly basically break your base with Baron minions.
You out.
Oh. Am I good?
Yeah,
what?
hello.
Oh, sorry. I thought I dropped. I thought that's what you just said. My bad. But yeah, they're just slowly choking them out. They're going to have to put up at some sort of fight. If Fever, you lose 3 inhibitors, there's just no chance of making anything happen. So you got to try and fight, but it just feels like they can't get anything done. And 3 inhibitors down, Barons down, and Mountain Souls down, and Fever is about to be down in 30 seconds.
Absolutely. I mean, they still have to hold out for 2.5 more minutes if they even want a chance at that Elder fight. But right now, there is no Elder fight. There's just a fight for the Nexus now, as they're going in, trying to find that pick onto Kaz. But there is no pick on Kaz that is to be found, as Frosty already picking up the first kill of this fight. They're just trying to survive, trying to keep their base alive for as long as possible. But there is no base to keep alive, as CB Rush takes the first game tonight against Fever.
And 33 minutes in, CB Rush put a dominant Game 1 posted sign saying, "We are the best team in the league. Come fight us. We had a substitute. It doesn't matter." They put up a absolute scorcher of a game number 1 where they just shut down anything that Fever tried to do. They couldn't make plays bot lane, the top lane. Anytime Stubby tried to make a play, it felt like he got canceled over again, and they just got slowly choked out. And in game number 2, I want to see Fever really come back with a vengeance, because they're a hot team. They can play super aggressive, super aggro, and I want them to play some new age picks and play them aggressively. Talking about game number one, though, we had two guys on the sidelines watching, analyzing, and breaking it all down. Icarus and Mac, how do you feel about game number one between CB Rush and Fever?
How do we feel about it, Icarus? CB Rush doing CB Rush things, business as usual. Just another day on the Rift, and Fever doing their best Titanic impression, just sinking, watching. I mean, as after Mountain Soul was picked up, the unkillable Acid Xin Zhao. Man, where do you want to start for this game?
It felt like we got to play the game just as much as Fever did, because especially around the end of the game there, they were watching more than they were playing, and they were just watching everything crumble down around them. It was very unfortunate, but that's because we saw CB Rush do exactly what they needed to be doing in this game, which was they found an early lead on Acid, and then he just ran away with the game with Nelson attached to him, the book cat making sure that he stays alive. And I want to go back very specifically to that mid lane play after with the Rift Herald that was dropped there. Acid found such an aggressive positioning of the enemy side jungle in order to prevent the side of Fever from collapsing on the Rift Herald that crashed into that mid lane turret. So not only did he allow that Rift Herald to crash so that they can get the additional gold off of the platings at 13.5 minutes, but Acid found a couple of extra picks. They were able to pick up the turret, and that was the team fight that broke the camel's back, because we saw throughout the early stages of the game, it was fairly even. It felt like there was a struggle for both teams to find plays, but once that happened, it really started to swing in favor of CB Rush.
And shout out to the CB Rush vision control that was put down. Fever were just trying to make it out of the jungle before the sun set. But Acid was prowling, Acid was finding the picks, and it was honestly really, really good fights taken, because we had just before the dragon fight, a pick onto Frosty was attempted, it goes awry, a ton of ultimates are blown, and then CB Rush know, okay, we lost the dragon, but they keep going, they know that they can, when they can be aggressive really on the map. Speaking of being aggressive, I mean, we saw Fever try to attack that bot lane, but Nelson and Dabay were pretty much untouchable, despite the Ezreal losing summoners really, really early in the laning phase.
And it just felt like there wasn't enough punishment being made off of the back of the fact that they did get the cleanse, they got the flash, and they got the blink out of that Ezreal very early on in the laning phase. And they could have tried to look to collapse on that and punish it a little bit more. Zongi did have the priority there. We saw the Acid wasn't anywhere nearby in order to prevent that dive from happening. And then once Zongi did go to the top side of the map in order to prevent a dive happening from there, he ends up going down. He ends up dying. A little bit of a misplay from Stubby, who went in too aggressive when Zongi wasn't in a position to be able to help him out, and he ends up going down for first blood. But at that stage in the game, there was a lot that Fever still had going for them. They had CS differentials in almost every single lane. I think the biggest issue is we just didn't see them take any aggressive plays for themselves, because TL Providence didn't use his teleport aggressively throughout the entire laning phases. And because of that, when Frosty teleported to the top lane, we see that they not only get the first kill onto Stubby, but they get a dive and a collapse onto Zongi. If the Orianna had TP matched there, maybe they only get Stubby and walk away. Instead, opting for a CS differential, sure, that gives you a slight gold lead in the early stages of the game, maybe an EXP lead, but when you continue to not use those summoners cooldowns, when you continue not to make plays around the fact that this Orianna is doing so well in the mid lane when it comes to farm and EXP differential, well, then it's not going to mean that much, because you have Acid who just comes in and tears them apart. And then Dabay scales into the game, Frosty scales into the game, and eventually we saw that Kaz also, as that Cho'Gath just gets so tanky that it doesn't matter how hard you try to shut him down on the top side of the map, he still comes in and just soaks up all the damage.
Exactly. CB Rush, again, just another play from the classic playbook, popping off, even picking up this clean victory without their main man in the top lane. Rutledge was missing. It was Kaz on the Cho'Gath. Stubby still unable, despite getting a massive CS lead early on, able to kind of transition that kind of what you were talking about, Icarus, with moving around the map, making plays happen, especially with the likes of Providence's TP there on the Orianna. We'll have to see if Fever are going to be able to make some critical adjustments, not only in the draft, but also their gameplay to try to turn this series around. But before we get started with the second draft in this Block 3 show match, Icarus, I believe you talked to CB Rush before this series. Who are we interviewing today?
We are going to get an interview with, I do believe, Rutledge and Dabay coming in here. Or no, it's Acid and Dabay. That's who I was able to talk to. I think we had Rutledge last week, and then we had Frosty on the interview in between games last week. So we did get to speak to the other two members of CB Rush. Very cool guys. Very exciting to get to talk to them. I'm excited for you all to be able to meet them as well.
Let's roll it.
And welcome to Excellency Mid-League Week 7. I am your caster, Gunjan, and I am here.
Hi, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another interview. My name is Icarus, and we're going to have a couple of members here today, again, from CB Rush, joining us for the second time on the caster desk today. Can I have you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves really quick?
Yo, what's good? Dabay, play ADC for CB Rush.
Hey guys, I'm Acid. I play jungle for CB Rush, and I've been with them, well, ever since we've been named CB Rush.
It's been a while now. How long have you guys been playing together?
Shoot, man. maybe 3-4 months. Pretty new, actually.
So Dabay is the newest member to our lineup, and then the other four we've been playing for quite some time. Well, especially just me and Relish, we've been playing for the past year and a half together, and then we've picked up a mid laner, a top, well, Relish is top, and then Dabay and ADC. Nelson, who's our support, as you guys probably know, he's always been on our team, on and off. Sometimes he'll hop off, sometimes he'll be with us, and now he's with us right now.
Hey, you love to see a team that stays together. It gets you guys that synergy, and it's showing quite apparently for you guys in this in the mid league so far. As you guys are coming in first place right now, you've only dropped one game so far versus Bucky Stratosphere. Asad, I kind of want to get your opinion. How have you guys been feeling so far into this tournament? You guys just came off of a 3-0 from last week versus Death Cards Academy, one of the teams vying for second place. Besides that one loss to Bucky's back in week 1, you guys have been killing it. How are you guys feeling?
We're feeling pretty good. Unfortunately, coming up in these couple of weeks, we will have some substitutions. So in terms of synergy, we might be a little lackluster, but I do like the meta right now. I like the Gwen top. I like the junglers. There's so many AP 80 junglers that you can play. I like the ADC meta as well. The Bay is really comfortable on Ezreal, and he's also really good on Ashe. So the meta just complements our whole team as a whole.
Dabay, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. I wasn't worried about me stepping out last week. I knew they're gonna 3-0 or at least 2-1 that whole entire series because they're just nutty players. So it feels bad. Feels good to be back with the team though.
I mean, we're glad to have you back as well. Yeah, you guys 3-0'd last week, even with the substitute 80 carry. Looking forward to this next week. You said you're going to have a couple substitutes, and so I got a question for you coming up on that. But you guys are going to be playing off against Fever, who is arguably the most formidable foe that you guys are going to be playing against in this entire tournament so far. They're looking like the surefire second place team here. Are you guys nervous coming up against these guys? Because they're feeling very confident. Dabay, I want to come to you first. How are you feeling getting prepared for your face up against Fever in this upcoming week?
I think it's gonna be pretty fun just because they seem like they play around their ADC a lot and sort of the mid lane, but I think their ADC is their main focus. So it'll be nice to shut them down and show everybody I'm the best ADC.
Ooh. Acid?
Yeah, I mean, looking at their lineup, I know a couple of their players, especially Sol. I've been on a team with him a couple times now, and Zongi, we've talked a little bit as well. So it's definitely going to be interesting to play against them since I have never played against their whole lineup. I am excited, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna 3-0 if not 2-1. So we're just too good at the moment.
You guys are feeling pretty confident. I want to go back to the point you're making earlier, Acid. You said you got a couple of substitutes coming up. Is that going to be affecting your guys' game versus Fever, or is that looking more into the future for weeks 8 and weeks 9?
Hell no. Well, tomorrow I believe our top laner is not going to be there for the first game, and then he will be on a IRL trip. I'm not going to disclose if he doesn't want to disclose, but he's going to be out for a couple weeks and starting July 1st. So we're going to have Kaz coming in top lane, but we just scrimmed with him and he felt pretty good playing with the just, you know, like was it the hand in the glove in the hand, something like that. So
If the glove
it felt pretty
fits.
good playing with him.
Something like that.
Exactly. Who, you know, Kaz, he blended in. He plays the tanks, he plays the carries, he plays the bruisers. So I trust him.
Hey, synergy and trust is what makes a team work. I'm glad to see that you guys, even with substitutes, are still performing so well. You guys, at this point, like I said, looking towards the future, you're coming in as a guaranteed playoff team, and if you win this week versus Fever, you pretty much guarantee that you guys are going to be locking in that first place spot going into playoffs. If you do, you guys are going to be facing up against one of the lowest seeded team in semifinals. You will have a bye in the first week of playoffs here. I just want to know, is there anybody in particular that you guys are looking forward towards playing against in playoffs? Is there any particular team that you think like, hey, if we play this team, for sure going to be able to make it out? Dabay, I kind of want to come to you first on this one.
You know, I think the only team I haven't or won't be able to play against is Death Card Academy. So I know they have a really good ADC on that team as well, and their bot lane's pretty strong. So if anything, I would like to play against them during playoffs.
Awesome.
Yeah, for me, assuming, well, obviously we're going to 3-0 all these weeks coming up, so I'd really like to play against Bucky just to show them that the one game was just a slip up, you know, we were all drunk maybe or something, maybe our power died or something, you know. So I'd like to play against Bucky's, show them who's really the king of the mid leagues and, you know, 3-0 them. Or 2-0 them, depending where we play them.
It is going to be a best of 5, so I do also want to ask you guys, are you guys worried about the best of 5 at all? Because it means if you guys drop a game, you have to go for this full 3-0. For the full 3 wins, if you guys want to make it out of the semifinals or make it out of quarterfinals for each series that you guys play. Are you guys worried about that format at all? Or are you guys feeling pretty confident that it's going to be just 3-0 sweeps every single week?
Hell no, 3-0s. We've been 3-0ing since week 2. So it's going to be 3-0s in the playoffs as well. Except for the first week, because obviously we're your first seed.
I love to see the confidence. It's feeling, it's always great to see you guys coming in with so much reassurance that you guys are going to be able to pick up the wins here. I'm kind of blowing through the questions here really quickly. I got a couple more and then we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I just want to get from your guys' perspectives. Acid, you said you've been on the team for a while. I want to know, what is kind of your role as one of the more veteran players on this team, and how do you influence the team just outside of the game, not so much from the jungle perspective, but as a personality?
So as a personality, I'm definitely the one that tilts the most. So if I don't tilt, my team is not allowed to tilt. That's basically how it works. If I lose Scuttle at 315, FF go next. If I see a pick I don't want to play against in pre-draft, FF go next. But if my mental's strong enough to like stand up to the drafts and to the Scuttles and to the invades, then I know my team's stronger than me and they're mentally more stable than me. And so they will like carry my mental for me and will win games for sure.
Dabay, you're the new player. Are you the young strapping kid on the block that's keeping the veteran from losing his shit?
Man, even if they lose their shit, they all handle it pretty well. I'm just here to make sure I'm that late game insurance plans where like shit hits the fan, you know, I'm there for you guys.
You'll love to hear it. Final thing for you guys, do you have any last thoughts, comments, shout out to you guys, want to give anything you want to plug before we call it a night here?
Ooh, that's a toughie. You put me on the spot. If you had told me this before, I mean, just expect us
Twitter
to,
plug
you
it
know.
now.
No, well, just expect us to 3-0 until the playoffs, and then the playoffs, we might drop a game here or there, but for the most part, I'm pretty confident in our team.
Dabay, anyone you want to shout out?
Cool. Yeah, man. Just shout out to my team. My team. Acid, Red, Frosty, Nelson. You know, they're doing work. You know, shout out to my girl too, because she's like supporting me through all this shit. So it can get very frustrating, but she holds me down.
Hey, you love to see it. Love is when you support somebody even in the tough times. So fantastic to hear that you guys all love each other and that you guys are getting love at home as well. Thank you so much, Acid and Dabay, for joining me on this interview today. And you guys have a good night. And for the rest of you watching at home, enjoy the rest of the games.